Alright, so first we'll start with the clouds. I'll mix a bit of purple and add a bit of Alizarine crimson into the ultramarine blue, and I'll just add a bit of what do you call burnt sienna, just to dull it down a bit. And we'll start with the sky. And I'll mix a bit of pale blue, using a bit of manganese blue as well as cobalt blue, and a bit of white, and the sky just fades into becoming white over there. I'll just squeeze the water out of my brush and just try to create a few clouds here and there. It's a pretty warm day today, and so the paint is like rapidly drying, so what I'll do next is I'll spray some water, because it's like really drying fast. And next I'll mix a bit of raw sienna with a bit of quinacridone gold. And I'll let this mix with the sky in certain areas, so that we don't get it looks nice that way. And it becomes darker towards the left of the painting. I'll just use that pale blue that I mixed earlier and just wet this area for the sky, as for the sea. There isn't actually any blue in the sea. It's kind of a gloomy day. I'm just adding a bit of blue as kind of a backdrop for me to add the dark colors later. So I'll add a bit of water here. So what I'll do next is let's paint the sand over here. So I'll make use of the same mix, The sand is a lot cooler compared to the color that I have used here. So I use a bit of lavender into the mix. And dull it down a lot. Yep, so that looks good. And spray some water. It's really... We'll add a bit of Alizarine to the mix as well. It's just... it's got a bit of red in there, definitely. So, yeah. I'll let the washes merge into each other, and yeah, then just fill in the rest of the area with the paint. Just clean this a bit. And yep, so that looks good. Next I'll take a bit of Viridian. Bit of Viridian green. Mix with a bit of burnt sienna. And start putting in those green. And a bit of dry brush strokes. And I'll use a bit of blue into this green. And create a bit of depth here with the color, with the muted color, as well as by reducing the tone. Right, so that's looks good. Just a few details here and a few dry brush marks. Perfect. So what I'm going to paint next is the reflections over here. So it's a bit tricky. So I'm going to use the flat brush for those reflections. I'll use the same green that I mixed earlier. Just darken it a bit more. Right, so that's the reflections. So what I do is I'll squeeze the water out of this brush and try to create a few marks through the reflection. Yep. And maybe use even a bit of gouache. Yep, that looks good. So the reflection looks good. Next I'm going to put in the water. So there's no blue in the sea. It's like it's a fairly, how would I put it? Kind of a grayish blue water. So I'll start mixing by using the blue, and then I'm adding a bit of burnt sienna into it, just to try and get that color going. Right, so I'll start over here. It's a bit too dark. So that's so just a few simple strokes, and it kind of reads like the sea. So I'll leave it as it is, and before everything dries, I'll just make use of a bit of white gouache and just put in a few waves here and there. Yep. Right, so once everything is drying, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken this sand. It's much more dark. It looks really pale once I have painted the rest of the painting. So I'm going to mix a dark mix and kind of darken this area over here and gradually make it lighter towards the left of the painting. So I'll need a bit of burnt sienna for that. I'll start with the burnt sienna. Add a bit of lavender into it. Maybe add a bit of a neutral tint. Yeah, I think this about looks right. So I'll start here. So this is where it's really dark here. And it and this wash becomes gradually warmer. Maybe even add a bit of Alizarine crimson. Right, so that looks good. I'll just smoothen a few areas by adding a bit of water and just blending it with the background. Just some clean water would do. Right, so that looks good, and I'll splatter some burnt umber just to add a bit of interest. One drop has gone into the sky as well. I'll just clean it. Another thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to like kind of dull this area a bit because it's competing with my focal area. So I'll just add a bit of blue and just make it a bit more dull. So I'll just make this a bit darker here. I'll mix a bit of burnt umber and so this dark kind of I wanted to do it whilst the wash is still wet so that it nicely blends with the wet wash that we have underneath, and these darks won't look like, reads separately from the rest of the painting. A few weeds here as well. And we've got kind of a nice seaweed here just taking us nicely into the painting. Bit too dark. And like a few splatters of clean water. Alright, so that should be good enough for the seaweeds. What I'll do next is I'll put in a figure here. So I'll just mix a bit of red with a bit of burnt sienna. And put a nice red shirt here. And we also get the reflection of the shirt in the water. Yep. Then we'll give him a like nice dark blue shorts, which will almost read as a black. And a head. Yep. So there we go, we got a nice figure there. So by adding this figure, we have given this whole painting a bit of scale and also a bit of more interest. A bit of white gouache, and I don't usually like to use white gouache, but this painting is like so small that it's very difficult to leave any whites and stuff. Darken this area a bit so that our focal point looks more prominent. Yep. A bit of dark here. I just use this blue here. And maybe add a bit of Alizarine into it and just darken the sky here a bit. Just remove the tape and see how this looks with the white border around it. So in the description I have given a link where I will be uploading the reference photo as well as the finished painting, a photo of the finished painting. Please feel free to use the reference photo. It was taken by me, so there's no copyrights or any other issues. Feel free to use the reference photo and just give it a go and see how it turns out. So hope you enjoyed this demo and hope to see you in another video soon.